Brazil and Latin America, and this just 2 Asian countries, Singapore and Hong Kong. So you notice that no data from India collected with this particular reference. From WHO, data were collected from India, and at a more recent time frame. These data from India were collected on young people between the ages of 0 and 5, and then merged with data from the US for age 5 through 18 to come up with this particular growth reference. So it still may not be ideal, but perhaps a little bit closer in terms of our ability to measure or classify these young people correctly. So in this first study here, we compared our estimates using the different age and gender-specific cut points that these different references recommend, and just cross-categorized them. So here, our data, very simple. The rows represent the categories based on the Agarwal reference, and then the columns based on the categories for the IOTF reference. So if you look to the far right, according to Agarwal, 91 of our 1,818 students would have been classified as obese, 234 as overweight, versus the IOTF would have had just 59 as obese and 189 as overweight. A kappa statistic is a measure of agreement between these two growth references. An ideal score would be a 1.0. So the kappa statistic is much less than that, suggesting here as we look at the data that the IOTF reference actually underestimates weight status in this particular setting. If we compare then the national reference again to the WHO reference, the categories are a little bit closer. So again, Agarwal 91 classified as obese. In the WHO study, 90 students, and then 234 versus 210 there. So the kappa statistic closer to 1 and suggests that the WHO reference would be a better estimate of weight status. So fairly simple analyses to do, but very important for us to start to make sure that we are categorizing or classifying young people correctly before we then go on to understand the etiology of this particular condition. So using the WHO cut points that are again age and gender specific, this is what the distribution of weight status look like in our particular population. So the large majority in the solid kind of darker blue were of normal weight status, and then about equal percentages at overweight, obese versus underweight. So our data mimic data from other parts in the country that suggests really that it's not, that it's a double burden of underweight and overweight that we're dealing with in this particular context. And we'll come back to that at the very end of this presentation. We take a look at weight status, or the percent who are overweight and obese, by important demographic factors. We see in our data set no differences between boys and girls. Other data sets suggest that maybe boys have a higher prevalence of overweight and obesity at this age compared to girls, and that changes as they reach adults, where women